And so we get within touching distance of Phone Show 300. 300 shows, spanning 11 years from quarter VGA through to 4K, if there's enough demand. From Nokia N90 and Palm Trio to Google Pixel, Samsung Galaxy S8, iPhone 7 Plus, and everything in between for 11 years. What to do for Show 300? What I'd like to do is share my vision of the future of smartphones and mobile technology. But I'd like contributions from others too. I've had good responses in the past for special shows, and here we are again. Why not have your moment of fame on the Phone Show by sending in a 30-second phone shop selfie video saying who you are, what you're currently using as your main phone, and the single aspect of mobile tech that you hope to see in the next few years, all in 30 seconds. There's a challenge. Send the short videos, they'll be small, even at 1080p of course, as attachments to the email address shown here, and I'll pull it all together in Phone Show 300 and quite probably discuss it with Ted and the others on Phone Show Chat. Thanks in advance. Oh, and a personal note, I'm having to spend time each week caring for my 80-year-old dad at the moment. It's something of a time of crisis for him, so do bear with me if it takes a bit longer than normal to get Show 300 out. Huawei has been fine-tuning its digital native, for which read teenagers and 20-somethings, smartphones for a couple of years now. And with this, the Honor 6X has almost perfected the delicate balance between technology and value for money. The 6X, again, almost, has no weaknesses, at least in this relatively budget segment of the market. If you want a decent, if not top-end smartphone, don't want to pay top dollar, and don't mind your Android experience to be slightly parallel to Google's Nexus and Pixel ambitions, then the Honor 6X is an easy recommendation. The word almost here refers not to functionality deficiencies in the phone as is, but to one of the component choices. The Honor 6X is engineered around an old micro USB connector rather than the newer, more durable, more flexible and more capable USB Type-C. Yes, the latter is pricier in terms of componentry, but Type-C is already de rigueur across 2016 flagships and should be right across the mid-range through 2017. It probably all comes down to money, but it's a shame. In terms of design and build, the Honor 6X is terrific for the price. A curved aluminium back mates up with curved display glass in a crackingly ergonomic form. The review handset was classed as gold, though you can also get the 6X in silver or grey with a black front should that be more to your taste. It is to mine. At the top and bottom of the back of the phone are, in this case, gold plastic sections housing the various cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and GPS antennae. This does mean that there's a slight step feel between metal and plastic sections, but at this price it didn't really bother me. In fact, knowing that signal strength is stronger as a result is more than compensation for the lack of metal covering the whole of the phone's back. Around the 6X's body are a dual nano SIM and or micro SD tray, the usual compromise about how you use that second slot, a 3.5mm audio out jack, hooray, with cracking output, a top microphone for noise cancellation in calls and for recording the left channel of stereo audio recording, for example in videos, volume and power buttons textured but positive in action, and finally there's a mono speaker down the bottom which isn't bad but also can't match up to stereo speakered phones. Here is a demo. This is going to be full volume and a bit of Joe Bonamassa tradition. So it's a pretty average Huawei stroke Honor stroke generic smartphone speaker. Fine for the digital natives and casual use, but it's not up to my standards. There's the aforementioned micro USB data and charging port and a cosmetic dummy speaker grill, almost certainly with the main microphone behind it. So all rather standard, though nicer in the hand than you'd have a right to expect for a £200-ish smartphone. The 1080p display is excellent indoors with vibrant colours that impress especially every time EMUI 4 here changes the lock screen wallpaper. Some of them are stunning enough that you'll pause and admire them before diving into the phone UI per se. Outdoors, the Honor 6X's display is acceptable when cranked right up in terms of brightness, though it wasn't always. Easy to see details in the camera interface when taking photographs in the sun. There's a sunlight readability option settings, but it didn't seem to make much difference in my testing. There's also eye comfort mode, reducing the amount of blue in the backlight and designed for more relaxing use of the phone in the evening. This is not unusual, of course, except that there's no way here to automate this as far as I can see. So you have to activate the setting manually and then deactivate it every single time. This needs to be time-based, surely. As often happens with Chinese phones, the Honor 6X comes with a factory-fitted plastic screen protector. Most users do seem to keep this on, despite the use of super hard Gorilla Glass 3 under the soft plastic, which always amuses me. I removed the protector immediately and polished up the glass with a soft cloth, with good results and no ugly protector edges to annoy. On the back, the fingerprint sensor is small but functional and is nicely recessed so you can find it instantly without having to feel around. And this being EMUI, there's the usual swipe down on the sensor to bring down the notification shade, plus the swipe left and right when the gallery to move between photos. Finally, there are the cameras. Yes, plural. This is one of the first lower mid-range handsets to have dual cameras. Now, I'm not one to be bowled over by such gimmicks. It's basically a 12 megapixel 4x3 sensor with phase detection autofocus, plus an extra 2 megapixel camera designed to calculate a depth map, similar to what HTC once did with the 1M8, but done here far better. The upshot is that you can take photos of any object within a couple of meters, i.e. closer than the limit of the depth of field that you get if you were focused on infinity, and use the depth information to artfully blur out everything from that particular focal plane. Huawei calls this wide aperture mode in that it simulates a proper capture with much larger aperture and correspondingly smaller depth of field. Yes, it's a gimmick, but A, you don't have to use it, it's just a mode you explicitly select, and B, the results can be a lot of fun with bokeh effects even at a meter and even in bright light, something which traditional smartphone cameras, even the iPhone 7 Plus, would find tricky. You have to really look at the edges and details to see that the bokeh result is actually artificial. For normal users, it's just a super effect and one which they'll really enjoy playing with. EMUI's camera includes a myriad of other modes too, from HDR to beauty to night. You know the drill by now. There's lots to play with, including a full-on pro photo manual mode, should you really want to fiddle. Video capture is at 1080p and unstabilized in any way, which is probably a limitation of the chipset and GPU, but you do get stereo audio capture, something you don't get on the latest iPhone, and you get the same pro mode where you can manually adjust white balance, exposure and focus in video mode. Very nice. Around the front, there's a very capable 8 megapixel selfie camera with many of the same modes. But onto the internals, a Kirin 655 chipset and 3 gigabytes of RAM do a great job of keeping everything ticking along smoothly, with 32 gig of storage, plus that optional microSD, providing ample room for apps, games and media. Now that we've achieved 3 gigabytes RAM for even mid-price models like this, there really should be no performance issues or limitations across the board. And as usual for Huawei and EMUI, applications are largely closed in the background unless they're on the opt-in list for preserving. This does take a little setting up if you're geeky like me, but it's worth it. A couple of battery saving modes are also available, including the instant ultra battery saving, which doesn't need a lengthy setup and reboot as on some of the Samsung phones of late. Very nice when you're almost out of power, and it's instant to exit as well. The sealed battery inside here is 3340 mAh, which is large in this class of device and means a realistic 2-day battery life, or at least raring to go into the small hours on a frantic night out, which is the sort of thing I don't do anymore at my age, but perfect for the target market. Interestingly, there's no support for 5 GHz Wi-Fi, presumably a limitation of the less than flagship class Kirin chipset. It's a shame, since this higher Wi-Fi frequency produces much more reliable results, in our house at least. Happily, there is NFC, not always a given on budget Honor devices, which means that Android Pay can be installed and used. It would have been nice to see this installed by default for new Android users. The Honor 6X comes with EMUI 4.1, along with a host of interface additions and twiddles. Now, 4.1 is actually quite old, and the other Huawei-made phones already ship with EMUI 5, with major changes and additions, but this isn't due to come to the Honor 6X until at least April. 3 months away, which is a shame. There's too much that's different to stock Android to list here, but let's get past the lack of an app drawer and look at some of the additions. For starters, there's the floating dock, a draggable shortcut spot, mimicking the navigation bar, an idea we saw recently in the Xiaomi Mi Mix with QuickBall, though the idea isn't fully baked here, as you can't also dismiss the original nav bar, making the floating dock less of a unique feature than it should be. Bundled with the Honor 6X is a whole bunch of third-party applications, including Facebook, Twitter, Booking.com, News Republic, Opera, Instagram, TripAdvisor, and more, all genuinely useful, plus 3 freemium games. None of this is too offensive and makes sense on a lower priced handset, where Honor tries to make a few extra bucks in licensing per handset from major publishers. The Honor 6X somehow manages to do everything most people would want a smartphone to do, with surprisingly little fuss, zero complaining, and it comes in at a third the price for Galaxy S7 Edge. That I have to resource to picking on its choice of charging and data port as its biggest weakness is something of a testament to how good the rest of the phone is. If the 6X had USB Type-C and compatibility with all the chargers, cables and accessories that we're all going to be buying this year, it would have my unreserved recommendation. As it is, I'm simply going to say that I like the Honor 6X very much, though maybe not in the gold here. And so will everyone in its digital natives target market.